In a world where the perfect family is a fortress, betrayal hides behind smiles and Instagram posts, what if everything you cherished was a lie? Picture this. A summer evening, a family get-together, kids screaming with laughter, the comforting murmur of loved ones. But beneath the surface, whispers, glances, laughter that hides something more. This story is about how one moment can shatter years of trust, triggering an avalanche of revelations. At its heart is a man whose world implodes, but his fight for truth and peace is just beginning. The golden light of a late afternoon in June washed over the Brooklyn brownstone garden, casting a serene glow over the family gathering. The smell of grilling burgers and blooming hydrangeas mingled with the lively buzz of conversation. Kids darted between picnic tables in a game of tag, their shrieks echoing above the adult chatter. This family reunion, a 20-year tradition, felt both familiar and unsettlingly fragile. Mark lingered near the drinks cooler, absently swirling iced tea. His eyes followed his wife, Sarah, as she moved through the crowd, her laughter bright and melodic, yet a little forced, like a note slightly off-key. Their kids, Alex, Ben, and Lily, zipped around with cousins, carefree and loud. At the center of it all, Uncle Frank held court, spinning one of his legendary tales. The group around him erupted in laughter as he delivered the punchline with practiced flair. Mark joined the circle, offering a polite chuckle, but he couldn't ignore the way Frank's arm brushed Sarah's shoulder, or how she leaned in to whisper something that made him laugh. It pricked at Mark, a tiny sting he quickly dismissed. He turned to Aunt Millie, perched on a wrought iron bench nearby, seeking distraction. "Millie, you've really outdone yourself," Mark said warmly. "This is wonderful." "Thank you, dear," she replied, her smile kind, but Mark's attention drifted back to Sarah. She caught his eye and waved, but it felt more like a polite nod than a real connection. Determined to engage, Mark circulated, but his thoughts remained tethered elsewhere. A distant cousin clapped him on the back. "Alex is growing into a fine young man," he said with a nostalgic smile. "Spitting image of his father, isn't he?" "Sure," Mark replied, his voice flat. The comment hit a nerve, echoing similar remarks he'd brushed off for years. Now they carried an uncomfortable weight. His thoughts were interrupted by Sarah's approach. "Mark," she called, her smile bright but strained. "Could you grab more wine from the basement? We're running low." "Of course," he said, studying her face. Her eyes darted away. "Don't be long," she added, her tone falsely buoyant as she rejoined the crowd. Mark headed towards the basement steps, but faltered when Alex, Ben, and Lily appeared beside him. "Want some help, Dad?" Alex offered, his voice tight. "We can come with you," Ben chimed in, but something felt rehearsed in his tone. Mark glanced at them, sensing a forced politeness. "I've got it," he said, waving them off. Their gazes lingered as he turned to the basement door. At the threshold, Mark paused, hand on the worn brass knob. The faint sounds of the party filtered through, clinking glasses, bursts of laughter. But beneath the surface, a softer, more intimate murmur caught his attention. His chest tightened as he pushed open the door. The hinges groaned softly, muffling the party noise as the door swung shut. Descending the creaking stairs, Mark entered the dimly lit basement. A single bulb cast a feeble glow over dusty boxes and forgotten furniture, barely piercing the shadows. The faint sound of voices reached him. Sarah's laugh, unmistakable, followed by Frank's low, familiar tone. Their words were indistinct, but the playful intimacy was unmistakable. Mark's foot hit the cold concrete floor, and he froze. His heart thudded. As his eyes adjusted to the gloom, He saw them. In a shaft of faint light, Sarah stood in Frank's arms. Their closeness, the shared moment, shattered something inside Mark. He stood rooted, the afternoon's fragile harmony unraveling. They turned sharply at his ragged gasp, the sound slicing through the tension. Sarah's eyes met his, but instead of fear or guilt, her expression held a knowing smirk that sent a chill through him. Faint voices rose from the stairwell, urgent, stoking the chaos swirling inside Mark. He recognized Sarah's playful cadence, threaded with Frank's calm, self-assured tone. Mark halted mid-step, gripping the banister so hard his knuckles turned white. Instinct screamed at him to retreat, to pretend he hadn't heard, but a darker urge held him, compelling him to hear more. "You're pushing it, Frank," Sarah said, her tone light but edged with warning. "Oh, don't be like that," Frank replied smoothly. "Admit it, you thrive on the thrill. You always have." Sarah's laugh echoed up the stairwell, a sound Mark hadn't heard from her in years. Carefree. Genuine. "We can't get sloppy," she said, her voice dipping to something serious. "Mark isn't as clueless as you think." Frank let out a low chuckle, tinged with arrogance. 20 years, Sarah, and he still buys every act we put on. He's a tool, nothing more." Mark's grip tightened, his breathing uneven. Rage churned within him, but he stayed rooted, listening. Slowly he ascended, each step deliberate and silent. When he reached the bottom, Sarah's tone shifted, sharper now. "Hush, he could be listening." Whatever Frank was about to say was cut off as Mark stepped into view. Sarah spun around, her expression flickering between surprise and resolve before settling into a cold, unreadable mask. Frank, standing close, didn't even bother to hide his irritation, his smirk fading into casual annoyance. "Well," Sarah said at last, her voice a strange blend of defiance and relief. "Guess there's no point in hiding anymore." Mark's throat tightened. What is this?" he asked hoarsely. Sarah tilted her head, her smirk deepening. "It's the truth, Mark. Consider it the end of your little fantasy." She crossed her arms, glancing at Frank, who offered a nonchalant shrug. Mark's heart pounded. "What is this, Sarah?" he repeated, louder. Sarah's smile widened, her eyes gleaming with twisted amusement. "Oh, Mark," she said, dripping with mockery. "You can't really be this clueless, can you?" Frank stepped forward, slow and deliberate, his voice smooth and cutting. "Come on, Mark," he said, shaking his head. "It's been a farce for years. Did you honestly think you could keep living this life forever?" Mark's hands curled into fists, his body trembling with fury. "How long?" he demanded, his voice cracking. Sarah paused, considering. "Before Alex was born," she said casually. "So, about 20 years?" The words hit Mark like a physical blow. The world spun. "The kids," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Frank answered without hesitation. "They're mine, all of them, and they've known for years." Staggering back, Mark collided with a shelf, his legs barely holding him. "You let me believe, all this time, you let me think they were mine," he choked out. Sarah shrugged, impassive. "You were convenient, Mark. A good provider, that's all." Fury surged through him, overpowering the pain. "I loved you. I loved them," he choked, his voice cracking. "How could you do this to me?" Sarah's expression darkened, her tone cutting. "You loved the idea of us, the picture-perfect family, but you never really saw us, did you?" Frank chuckled, stepping closer. "Face it, brother," he said, smooth and unfeeling. "You were nothing but a placeholder." Mark stared. his chest heaving, the weight of betrayal crushing him. The cold reality splintered his soul. Footsteps on the stairs shattered the stillness. Mark turned sharply, pulse racing. Alex, Ben, and Lily stood at the base of the stairs, faces unreadable, devoid of warmth, exuding detachment. For a desperate moment, Mark clung to hope they were unaware. He reached out. "Please, hear me out," he implored, his voice trembling. "Whatever you think." Alex stepped forward, a bitter smirk on his lips. "Spare us the humiliation," he cut in. "We know everything." The declaration struck Mark. His stomach churned. What are you saying?" Ben crossed his arms, colder than Mark had ever seen him. "We've always known," he stated plainly. "Uncle Frank is our real father. You were just the one who footed the bills." Lily's gaze turned frostier. "We don't need you," she sliced. "We never did. You were nothing to us." Her words landed with devastating finality. Mark's legs weakened. "But I was there for you," he stammered. "I raised you. I loved you," Alex sneered. "Did you really think that was enough? You were just a means to an end, and now we're done." Silence fell, thick and suffocating. Mark's breath hitched. He turned to Sarah and Frank, seeking remorse. "You've ruined everything," he whispered, raw. Sarah rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic, Mark," she dismissed. "You've always been blind to the truth." Frank's smirk widened. "It's over," he declared. "You can leave now." Anger flared, burning away numbness. Mark stepped closer, locking eyes with Frank. "You think this ends here?" he asked, voice trembling with rage. "You think I'll just disappear?" Frank met his stare, cool indifference. "What can you do? It's over. We've won." Mark's hands curled into fists, desire to strike Frank overwhelming, but he held back. Swallowing fury, he turned to the stairs, movements heavy, deliberate. "Running away already?" Sarah's mocking voice sliced through the air. "Thought you'd at least fight for the scraps of your dignity." He paused, not turning. "You'll pay for this," he said, low and sharp, then ascended the stairs. At the top, he turned back, taking in the sight. Sarah, Frank, and his children, united in betrayal. The image seared itself into his memory. Without a word, he shut the door and walked away. Stepping into the party, the lively atmosphere seemed distant, muted. Laughter, music, conversation blurred into background noise. A relative raised a glass, but Mark's nod was perfunctory. His thoughts raced. He wouldn't let this treachery stand. He'd been a pawn, but that era was over. Outside, the cold night air bit his skin as he leaned against his car. Cool metal grounding him momentarily. Turmoil swirled. His life, family, marriage, identity, built on deceit, every memory tainted. Sarah's radiant smile on their wedding day, holding Alex as a newborn, family vacations, now twisted, hollow. Mark drew a shaky breath. He didn't know his next move, but one thing burned. This was not the end. His jaw tightened, the sting of betrayal a burden. His mind swirled, suffocating, until a voice broke through. "Mark? John? You okay?" His cousin, David, approached, concern in his voice. Mark didn't respond. He turned, climbed into his car. The door slammed shut. Tires screeched as he sped off into the night. Streets blurred into light and shadow. Destination unimportant. He needed movement, escape from crushing reality. Sleep was impossible. Mark sat in the dim living room, photo albums scattered across the coffee table. Each page, a fresh wound. Sarah's smile, kids' birthday candles, Frank by his side. Cruel mockeries. His hands trembled over a photo of baby Alex, remembering pride and love. How blind had he been? By morning, resolve hardened. No reconciliation, no understanding, no forgiveness. Love weaponized against him. No longer the fool. 2 days later, Mark sat across from his lawyer, Isaac Miller. Stale coffee smell, sterile office. "I want this resolved quickly," Mark said, voice devoid of warmth. Isaac adjusted his glasses, reading Mark's tone. "Ready for divorce?" "Yes," Mark replied, unyielding. "And revise my will." Isaac hesitated. "Cutting everyone out?" Mark's gaze hardened. "Sarah, Frank, kids, no cent." Isaac opened his mouth, but Mark's stare silenced him. "Just do it," Mark said curtly. Isaac scribbled notes. Mark's thoughts drifted. Sarah and Frank's betrayal cut deep, but the kids' disloyalty was crueler. Pain hardened into steel. They'd all feel consequences. Within days, Sarah received divorce papers, delivered to their shared home, now steeped in bitterness. Her reaction, frantic calls, messages, pleading, desperation. He listened to one, deleted the rest. "Mark, please." Her voice trembled in voicemail. "I know you're hurt, but we need to talk. Kids need us." His finger hovered over delete, then erased it. No weakness. Sarah escalated, showing up at his office, unannounced. Security removed her, anguished cries echoing through the building, calling his name. Colleagues' hushed whispers reached his ears. Mark remained fixated on work, refusing to show turmoil. Then came Frank. Mark had trusted his brother, granting him a significant share in the family business. Love and confidence turned to ash. Swiftly, Mark convened an emergency board meeting. By meeting's end, Frank's shares liquidated, financially ruined. Fallout swift, ruthless. News of Frank's downfall spread. Mark imagined his brother's shock, disbelief, humiliation. Didn't erase betrayal, but a small measure of justice. A week later, the kids appeared. Mark sat in his new apartment, humble, unassuming, a world apart. Quiet, broken by a firm knock. He knew immediately who it was. Briefly, he considered ignoring it. Instead, he stood, face a mask, and opened the door. Alex, Ben, Lily stood before him, uncertainty and defiance, a blend familiar now. Alex stepped forward, attempting authority. "We need to talk." "Need to," Mark's reply, cold and measured. "About what?" "Mom says you're being unreasonable," Ben chimed in, frustration laced in words. "We need to sort this out." Mark's gaze steely. "Sort what out? You all made your choice." Tension thickened. Lily broke silence, voice softer. "We're still your kids." Mark's response swift, calm, yet unyielding. "No, you were never mine." Deafening silence. His words hung in the air, a final verdict. Alex's jaw tightened, fists clenching. "Fine," he spat. "If that's how you want it." Without reply, they turned, walked away. Mark closed the door, leaning against it. Gravity of encounter settled. Relief didn't come. Satisfaction didn't come. Only an aching void, weeks blurred. Endless paperwork. Aching isolation. Mark sold the house, cutting last tide of former life. Friends and family reached out, calls persistent then sporadic, fading into silence. He ignored them all. Needed solitude, space to rebuild. In lonely hours, bitterness threatened to consume him. Mark clung to one truth. He had survived. They'd taken advantage, broken trust, but he endured. Time to begin again. Years tested him. Mark faced remnants of old life head-on, forging a new path. Not easy. Some mornings, weight unbearable, pinning him to bed. But every day he rose, moved forward. Therapy, an anchor. Dr. Evans, sharp-eyed therapist, refused self-pity, defenses. They took advantage, she said bluntly. But that's on them. Doesn't define you. At first, Mark resisted, unwilling to let go of anger, but over time words sank in. He poured pain into work, pushing business to new heights. Relentless drive earned reputation as tough, capable leader. Outside work, solace in boxing. Each punch, cathartic release. Explored places he'd only dreamed of, finding peace in solitude of travels. Then, unexpectedly, love. Charity gala. Victoria. Sharp wit matched by boundless compassion. Relationship grew slowly. Mark cautious, guarded. Victoria never rushed him. One evening, beach under moonlight, she took his hand. You don't have to carry this alone. In that moment, beginnings of release, a small step letting go. 5 years passed. Steady growth, quiet healing. Mark rebuilt piece by piece, carefully choosing who to let in. Then, one cold evening, a knock shattered the peace. Mark paused, coffee mid-sip, body tensing. Visitors rare. He opened the door. Alex, Ben, Lily. Their presence stirred a storm. Anger, sadness, confusion. But he kept expression unreadable. Time had changed them. Alex's confidence, weariness, clothes disheveled. Ben avoided eye contact, fidgeting hands. Lily lingered back, arms wrapped, guarded eyes betraying unease. The past he'd fought to leave behind stood on his doorstep. We need to talk, Mark. Alex's voice, rough, strained. Mark's arms folded. I'm not your father, Alex faltered. We've fallen on hard times. Mark impassive. Not shocking, he said dryly. Get to the point. Ben stepped in, voice shaking. It's about Mom and Frank. Things are bad, really bad. They've lost everything. Mark raised an eyebrow, silent. Lily spoke, voice trembling. We need help. No money for college. We're stuck. Mark's brittle laugh sliced tension. College, he sneered. Coming to me for money? After everything? Alex's eyes flared. You owe us, he shot back. You raised us. Can't abandon us like this. Mark's voice dropped, chilling calm. He stepped closer, making them shrink away. Let me make this clear. I don't owe you anything. Not a cent. Ben shifted, voice quiet but firm. We made mistakes, he admitted. We get that now, but we're still family. Mark let out a bitter chuckle. Family? He echoed, disbelief dripping. Is that what you call the way you treated me? Shutting me out, using me as a wallet? Lily wiped tears. We were just kids, she murmured. Didn't understand. Briefly, Mark's gaze softened, but memories of exclusion hardened his expression. You made your choice, he said icily. Now you live with it. Alex's desperation turned to fury. So that's how it is, he snapped. Just going to stand there, let us suffer, prove Mom right that you're spiteful and small? Mark's face unreadable. I'm done being your scapegoat, he said flatly. Without waiting for reply, Mark turned to door, hand reaching for knob. Wait! Lily cried, lunging forward. Please don't shut us out. We have nothing left. Mark paused, hand on doorframe. Time stretched endlessly. Then, without a word, he pushed the door shut. The sound reverberated through the hallway. Muffled voices grew frantic. Mark leaned against the door, breathing uneven. He'd imagined this moment countless times, turning them away, forcing them to feel a fraction of his hurt. But now it had come to pass. All he felt was overwhelming emptiness. He remained there, voices fading, replaced by silence. Quiet pressed against him, suffocating. He had won, hadn't he? Built a life free of their influence, not relying on their validation, not their pawn anymore. Yet his victory felt unbearably hollow. He returned to living room. Victoria was there, eyes gentle with concern. She stepped closer, wrapped her arms around him. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Mark closed his eyes, clinging to her. His voice wavered. "I don't know," he confessed. He'd broken free from past, but scars remained, a constant reminder. Caleb had painstakingly rebuilt himself, but recovery was not straightforward. He'd sought retribution, achieved it, but the cost weighed heavily. Answers eluded him, save for one certainty. He was pressing forward step by determined step. When Sarah showed up at his door, he wasn't surprised. Deep down, he'd anticipated this moment, inevitable chapter. Word of Kid's confrontation must have reached her. Desperation driven her here. He opened door. Sarah stood before him, pale shadow. Eyes, once confident, now swollen, bloodshot, worn by tears. Clothing disheveled, spirit lifeless. Stark contrast to poised woman he remembered, radiant Sarah, gone, replaced by someone drained, hollow. "Mark," she said softly, voice fragile, breaking. Hesitant step forward, but he stood firm, blocking her path. Leaned against doorframe, arms crossed, face cold. "What do you want?" Voice sharp, devoid of warmth. Her shoulders slumped. I need to talk," she managed. "Talk!" he echoed, bitter laugh. "You were never interested in talking before." "Please," she pleaded, voice trembling, shaky breath. Then, to his shock, she sank to her knees. Tears streamed down her face, sobbing openly. "I was wrong, Mark. We were all wrong." Watching her crumble, torrent of emotions crashed over him. Anger, disgust, fleeting pity, quickly buried. Refused to let her glimpse weakness. Her hands trembled, reaching toward him. "I have nothing left," she whispered, voice barely audible. "Business gone. Frank's a mess. Kid's suffering. I can't do this alone." His jaw clenched. "What exactly do you expect me to do?" Her gaze met his, flicker of desperate hope. "Help us, please. You're the only one who can." No response. Silence stretched. Once he'd have done anything for her, moved mountains, built a future. Trusted, loved, built a life. But that was before. Before it crashed. Before he walked in on her with Frank. Before kids turned their backs. Memories churned, burning poison. "Do you remember that night?" he asked, voice low, edged with menace. "The night I found out? The way you looked at me, like you were proud?" Sarah flinched. "I was cruel," she admitted, voice breaking. "I wanted to hurt you, because I was hurting." His laughter, bitter, sharp. "Hurting? That's your excuse? Justifies anything?" "No," she said quickly, tears flowing faster. "Nothing justifies it. I was selfish. I destroyed everything we had. I see that now." He stepped closer, eyes piercing hers. "Did you see it when you lied to me every day? When you let me believe I was their father? When you made me a fool?" She crumpled further, hands covering face, sobs racking her body. "I regret it every single day. I was blind, Mark. Stupid. Thought I could have it all." "And you did," he said, voice colder than ice. For a while, but even that wasn't enough, was it? No, she whispered, voice breaking, barely audible confession. It was never enough. Could never be enough. Her words lingered, heavy with truth, despair. Wind stirred, scattering dry leaves. Mark wanted to leave, walk away, shut door on her past. But something held him. Invisible tether. Had to hear every word, no matter the hurt. Silence, thick, oppressive, broken only by his question, flat, detached. How long? She hesitated, voice barely a whisper, uncertain of meaning. What are you asking? How long were you with him? Venom unmistakable, seeping into cracks of her resolve. Sarah's eyes squeezed shut, bracing herself. Confession trembled. From the beginning, she admitted, even before we got married. Floor shifted beneath Mark. Balance faltered. Enormity of admission hit. Before. That word pierced him. Breath caught, speechless. It was a mistake, Sarah stammered, desperation edging in. Something I couldn't control, spiraled out of hand. I tried to stop it, Mark. I really did. But I didn't have the strength. Her words empty, drowned by roar of anger building within. Hands curled into fists, shook his head, disbelief etched on his face. You stole everything from me, he said, voice quaking. You let me live a lie. I know, she whispered, crumbling to her knees, clutching his pants, anchoring herself. Sobs raw, tears staining fabric. I know, and I hate myself for it. And I hate, Mark recoiled, yanking leg away. Don't touch me! Her shoulders sagged, trembling. Please, Mark, she begged, voice fractured. I don't deserve forgiveness. I understand. But I need you to listen. For the children's sake. If nothing else. Mention of children lit fire in his chest. Voice cold, resentful. Children? You mean the ones who called me a paycheck? Turned their backs for him? They didn't know what they were saying, Sarah protested weakly. He manipulated them. They were confused. They knew enough, Mark replied, icy, unrelenting. And so did you. He turned his back, unwilling to meet her tear-streaked face. After a moment, voice cut through tension. I've rebuilt my life, Sarah. Clawed my way out of wreckage you left behind. And now you're here, expecting me to do what? Sweep up pieces? Pretend none of this happened? She shook her head, desperation evident. Not for me. For them. They're still your children, Mark. His gaze hardened, turned to face her. No, he said, voice like steel. They're not. Sarah's expression crumbled, tears flowing freely. I understand, she whispered, voice hollow. I deserve this. But don't let them suffer for my mistakes. Mark's voice rose, sharp. You made them suffer, Sarah, he spat. When you dragged them into this mess, used them as pawns to keep your lies afloat. Her head bowed, posture sinking. I thought I could fix this, she murmured. But I can't, not without you. There's nothing left to fix, Mark replied, resolute, only moving forward. He stepped back toward doorway, face devoid of emotion. You made your choices, Sarah. All of you did. Her final plea, shattered whisper. Please. I'm so sorry. No, Mark said firmly, devoid of sympathy. You're sorry because you lost. That's not the same as regret. He closed the door. Sound final, definitive, echoed like conclusion of a story. On the other side, muffled sobs lingered, then faded into silence. Mark stood still, listening to quiet, walked to kitchen, poured water, stared out at fading light, Chapter ended. Past locked away. But as he held glass, realized victory felt hollow, cold, empty, tinged with bitterness. Days followed. Mark began shedding weight of years, anger, pain, gradually fading. Each morning reminded himself to focus on future, moving forward one step at a time. Road to healing, not simple, meandering unpredictably. Periods of doubt, unforeseen challenges. Resolve never wavered. Threw himself into work, growing company, mentoring young entrepreneurs. Beyond office, solace in hiking, newfound passion, peace, achievement. One brisk morning, pine aroma, crisp mountain air. Mark reached trail top, saw her, edge of rocky ledge, wind tousling auburn hair, gaze fixed on hills stretching endlessly. Quiet intensity captivated him. Hesitated, unsure if to disturb solitude. Before he stepped back, she turned, caught his eye, warm smile. "It's breathtaking, isn't it?" she said, voice soft, sure. "It really is," Mark replied, tentative step closer. "Never gets old." She extended hand, open, inviting. "I'm Lila." "Mark," he said, shaking her hand. Then, mix of nerves, curiosity. "Do you come here often?" Lila laughed lightly, melodic, teasing. "Is that your way of asking if I'm a hiker or wondering if you've missed me before?" Caught off guard, Mark laughed, deep, unguarded, strange but refreshing. "Maybe a bit of both." They talked for hours, perched on rocks, sun rising. Mark started cautiously, sharing fragments of story. Lila's compassionate presence encouraged him to open up. She listened intently, wisdom, quiet support. As they descended trail, Mark noticed something profound. Heavy shadows of regret, pain of old wounds, lighter, almost distant. Days, weeks followed. Connection with Lila deepened. Wit, empathy, honesty surprised him. Knack for grounding him, challenging retreat. "Can't keep running from past," she told him one evening, "but don't have to let it define you." Trust, Mark's greatest obstacle. Fears surfaced unpredictably. Could he endure heartbreak again? History repeat? When he shared fears with Lila, braced for rejection. Instead, she held his hand. "I'm not her, and you're not who you were. We'll figure this out together." And they did. Committed to therapy, navigating challenges as team. Learned to communicate, embrace differences, support each other through doubt. A year later, Mark proposed. Unassuming, heartfelt gesture. No spectacle. Quiet moment, sincerity, raw emotion. Tears. One sunny afternoon, Mark working in study, envelope slid under door. Breath caught. Handwriting familiar. From Alex. Letter long. Remorse. Painful truths. Alex admitted wrongs. Loyalty to Sarah. Frank. Harsh words. Wasted years in silence. Detailed struggles. Financial ruin. Broken dreams. Regret. Not asking for money. Forgiveness. Just chance to talk. Mark read letter 3 times. Emotions swirling. Anger. Memories of pleading. Rejection. But anger subsided. Spark emerged. Hope? Could Alex truly comprehend harm inflicted? That evening, Mark sat on porch, sunset. Lila joined him, quiet beside him. "What's on your mind?" she asked softly. Without speaking, he handed her letter. She read it, placed it down, turned to him. What do you think you'll do? He exhaled slowly, weight of decision. I don't know, voice barely above whisper. Part of me wants to hate him, swore I'd never let him back. And now? She asked gently. His gaze lingered on fading light. First time in years, he wasn't certain if heart held same resolve. Mark sat quietly. Eternity. At last he spoke, voice barely audible. No, he murmured, trembling slightly. I don't know if I can forgive. Leila's gaze softened, unwavering resolve. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, she said gently. Not about excusing what happened, about deciding how much power you want to give it over your life. Her hand rested lightly on his, steadying him. Memories of isolation rushed to Mark's mind. Betrayal cut deep, jagged scar. Even deepest wounds could heal. Slow, painful process. What Mark couldn't decide. Risk trusting Alex again, potential hurt, or keep distance. Preserve fragile peace. Days passed before choice made. Finally, reached out to Alex. Cafe meeting. First encounter in 5 years. When Alex arrived, Mark almost didn't recognize him. Face bore marks of age, regret, lines etched by hardship. They sat across from one another, tense silence. Unspoken words hung heavy. I meant every word I wrote, Alex said eventually, voice thick. I don't deserve forgiveness. Honestly, don't know why you agreed to meet. Mark's expression unreadable. Needed to see if you were sincere, he replied, leaning back. Had to know. Alex nodded quickly, earnest. I am sincere, he said. Meant every word. Mark's face hardened. You hurt me. All of you. I trusted you. You threw that trust away, he said, voice steady, cutting. Tears welled in Alex's eyes. I know, he whispered, voice barely holding. Don't expect you to forgive. Just needed to tell you how sorry I am. Mark sat quietly, gaze piercing. I can't promise things will go back to how they were, he said at last. Too much has happened. I understand, Alex said, voice breaking. But I want to try, whatever it takes, however long. Mark nodded slowly. It'll take time, he warned. Relief washed over Alex. Heartfelt thank you, murmured. Road to rebuilding relationship, long, fraught. But for first time, Mark felt glimmer of hope. Healing might be within reach. With Lila's support, began steps toward reconciliation. Not to restore what had been, but to build something new. Daunting journey, but one he felt ready to embark upon. Years passed. Mark's life, quiet rhythm, built foundation of love, resilience, hard-earned peace. He and Lila grew closer, bond strengthened by trust, mutual support. Scars of betrayal remained, no longer dictated life. Then, one day, knock, shattered calm. Opening door, face from past. Man, hollow cheeks, gray streaks, betrayed years of hardship. Frank. Years stripped confidence, weary, desperate shadow. Wave of conflicting emotions swept Mark. Anger, disgust, unexpected pity. Briefly considered slamming door, but he didn't. Stood firm, voice cold, clipped. What are you doing here? He demanded. Frank glanced nervously, fearing he'd been followed. I need to talk to you, he said, hesitant. Nothing to discuss, Mark replied sharply, grip tightening on doorknob. Please, Frank pleaded, voice cracking. "It's about Sarah. About everything." Against better judgment, Mark stepped aside, gestured Frank in. Tension followed them into living room. Mark gestured chair, but Frank remained standing, couldn't bear luxury of sitting. "Say whatever it is you came to say," Mark said, keeping distance. Frank ran hand through graying hair, fingers trembling. "You were right to shut me out," he began, voice barely whisper. "Right to hate me. I deserved it. But there's something you don't know, something I need to tell you." "Then get to the point," Mark snapped, patience wearing thin. Frank took shaky breath, bracing himself. Frank's confession sliced charged atmosphere. "I lied to Sarah," he admitted, voice heavy with guilt. Mark's eyes narrowed, tone cutting. "What do you mean?" "Start from the beginning." Uneasy breath, Frank hesitated. "I manipulated her. I fed her lies about you, lies that weren't true." Mark's jaw tightened. "What kind of lies?" Frank swallowed hard, shame palpable. "I made her believe you were cold, unfeeling. Told her you were unfaithful, that you didn't love her, that she was nothing more than a trophy." Suffocating silence. Floor shifted beneath Mark. Chest tightened, weight of Frank's words. When he spoke, voice low, laced with menace. "Why would you do that?" Frank hesitated, finally answered, voice trembling. "Because I wanted her. Always been jealous of you. Everything you achieved. Golden child. Everyone looked up to you. Couldn't stand it. Envy. I twisted truth. Made her doubt you at every opportunity." Mark's fists clenched, body trembling with rage. "So you poisoned her mind? Destroyed everything we had?" Voice cracked, anger mingling with hurt. Frank nodded, face ashing with regret. "Yes, but doesn't excuse what she did. She still made choices. But I made it easier. Planted seeds of doubt at every turn." Mark's mind raced. Memories of fractured relationship with Sarah crashed over him. Betrayal, deep scars. Knowing brother orchestrated it, pain unbearable. Overwhelming urge to strike back. Make Frank feel torment. Body remained frozen, storm of fury, exhaustion. "And what?" Mark asked bitterly. Long pause. "Do you think telling me this now will fix anything?" "No," Frank said quickly, shaking head. "Don't expect forgiveness. Don't even expect you to care. I've lost everything, Mark. Just needed you to know it was all my fault." Mark's gaze unyielding, expression unreadable. "Doesn't absolve her. Doesn't make her innocent." "I know," Frank admitted, shoulders slumping. "But I couldn't bear it alone anymore." Mark exhaled slowly, voice steely. When he finally spoke, "Get out." Frank hesitated. "Mark." "I said get out!" Mark roared, voice echoing. Door clicked shut behind Frank. Mark sank onto couch, body racked by emotions. Memories, betrayal, questions, churned within. Each thought more painful. Later that night, Mark shared ordeal with Lila. Voice calm, turmoil in eyes. She listened intently, quiet presence grounding him. "What are you feeling?" she asked gently. "I don't know," he admitted. "Anger, sadness, exhaustion. But none of it changes what happened. Doesn't make anything better." "No," she said, hand over his. "But maybe it's a step toward peace with it." He looked at her, expression raw. "How? How do you make peace with years of lies, betrayal? You decide how much more of your life you're willing to let it take from you," she replied softly. "Frank and Sarah are already trapped in misery they created, but you're not." Her words settled like balm. Mark didn't reply, letting thought sink in. Truth was, He didn't crave revenge anymore. Damage done. Both Frank and Sarah living consequences. But closure. Harder to define. Maybe closure isn't about forgiving them, Lila said, voice steady, soothing. It's about freeing yourself from their shadows. Maybe it's about finding forgiveness for yourself. Not for what they did, but for believing in them. For letting hurt seep in. Mark tilted head, quiet thought. That might be it. Next morning, long walk, steps carrying him through labyrinth of memories. Considered family, rebuilt life, decisions. Frank's revelation echoed, Sarah's actions. As Mark walked, began to grasp closure wasn't grand event. Didn't demand apologies, validation. Quiet, deliberate act. Decision to leave past where it belonged. Time moved on. One day, Mark stood by serene lake. Lila there too, calm presence. Charity event Mark helped bring to life. Endeavor, rediscover purpose, give back. Setting sun, golden streaks across water, tranquil reminder of renewal. Lila squeezed his hand. How you doing? Mark's lips curved, subtle smile. I think I'm okay, he replied. Her face lit, radiant smile. Resting head on his shoulder, she whispered, That's good. Elsewhere, Sarah and Frank, ensnared in regret, bitterness. Choices weighed heavily, their burden to carry. Mark's burden different, challenge rising above pain, reclaiming joy, meaning. He had succeeded. Wounds of past left mark, scar of hardship, perseverance. No longer shackle, tethering resentment. He'd made choice to release it. Claim peace, gift to himself. Standing by lake, eyes fixed on horizon, Mark felt profound release. First time in ages, truly free.